Welcome to the Chromatic Connection. Like, subscribe, and let's explore your story one color at a time. Hi everyone, I'm Fatima Al Shirawi, your host, and today's episode is a very inspiring story. So, as an individual, the stories that we've heard on our podcast is all about people who are resilient, people who have created businesses out of situations in their lives, their struggles. And today's episode is special because it's about an inspiring woman, Dina Elshurafa, who is the owner of Reform Athletica. And she will be sharing with us her entrepreneurial stories, her inspiration, and the most important elements that it takes for a successful business. At the same time, she will be sharing her journey as a type 1 diabetic and how that had incorporated into inspiring her in creating her business, creating her passion in life, and also connecting with people through this. And what was very interesting about this episode, that we had so much in common, sharing our stories as an entrepreneur, sharing our stories as a type 1 diabetic, helped people understand this personal journey that we go through as individuals. And at the same time, what truly you can find from difficult situations and find inspiring passions. Thank you very much. Today we have a very special guest and part of my T1 Warrior team, Dina Elshurafa. Hi, Dina. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited to talk to you today because we have so much in common. We're so passionate about what we do. So I'd love for you to share with us your origin story. So where you come from, where did you grow up, your passions in life?
Sure. Thank you. So I am Palestinian. By ethnicity, my parents were both Palestinian, born in Palestine, but I was born in Saudi, and I lived all my formative years until high school in Saudi Arabia, between Riyadh and Jeddah. So I also consider Saudi home. I moved to London for university and have been there pretty much ever since. Which has been 22 years now. I also have a home in Dubai, given the existence of my business here. And between Dubai, London, Saudi, Palestine, I sometimes get confused as to where my home is, but I'm lucky to have affiliations and kind of a place to go to amongst different countries.
And I'd love to know, like, with each country you stayed in, like, what were the things that you learned or inspired you for your life now? How it inspired you even with your business?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I lived in Saudi before all the changes have happened in terms of women being able to drive, in terms of people going to the cinema, mixing between females and males. So going back to Saudi now, compared to when I was growing up, is quite the adjustment, because that's not how I am used to Saudi. But it's something that has shaped my understanding of cultures and respecting cultures. Because growing up, whenever we used to travel in the summer, and I used to say I'm from Saudi, they're like, oh. How is it there? You know, we hear it's very strict and it's very conservative, but I'm like, not at all. As long as you are respecting the culture and respecting the country and the norms, life is as it is anywhere in the world. And to be honest, you know, the best years of my life have been there. My friendships have been formed there. My family are still there. Both my parents and my brothers still live there. And I think what I took from Saudi is their kind of work ethic, their dedication, and their constant desire to want to learn about cultures and change and incorporate the best of what the world can offer into society. I think obviously, having lived and then moved to the UK for university, that was quite the adjustment, I have to say, notwithstanding the fact that we used to travel a lot. But moving countries to something completely different was a tough experience to begin with. But, I think that is part and parcel of, university experience, and it really shapes you as a person, and, you face all the hardships of living alone and having to deal with everything on your own without the help of family and everyone around you. And that's actually something that I'm always grateful for, because I don't think I would have been as independent in terms of standing on my own 2 feet without that experience. And it gave me the push to want to be daring and do different things and explore different things and explore a profession that is challenging. I studied law at university and I practiced for 15 years. I still am a lawyer, although I've kind of put that to one side for now. So that is certainly something that had quite an impact on my journey as well.
Yes, and that's why we connected, because we have such a similar sort of background and experience. Same thing with me, like growing up in UAE. As you said, we had the conservative side, but at the same time, it was all about learning and growth. And at the same time, when I went to the States, major culture shock.
Absolutely. Oh my God.
And I do feel that our university experience and also being on your own is kind of like really the foundation of like a lot of entrepreneurs I've seen.
Yeah.
That challenge, being able to stand on your own feet kind of takes away the fear of when it comes to like, starting your own business or starting something that's like completely out of the ordinary,
Absolutely.
So it's very interesting. And as a lawyer, actually, this is a very strange question, but what have you taken from your law degree and you've incorporated into your current business?
Great question. I think first and foremost, it's the discipline. When you are in the service industry, which actually both law and the fitness business that we have is both in the service industry, you have clients. Clients pay for a service and they need to be happy and satisfied with your service. So I think the discipline and the understanding that no matter what, your client needs to be satisfied and happy, and not just that, but also they are, elated with the experience. They are very pleased that they would want to come back. And I actually find so many similarities between my legal career and my entrepreneurial career, because it's when you kind of understand your client's needs, both expressed and unexpressed, that's when you can excel as someone who provides a service. So in the law business, when you have a case or a project that is complicated, but the client can't quite see these complications or difficulties, but you bring their attention to it with a solution, that's when the client's very impressed with you and they'd come back to you. And likewise in Reform Athletica, when we excel at giving a great service for our client and make sure that they are happy with what we provide, we make sure that they come back. So definitely something between both has made me kind of laser focused on providing an excellent service at Reform Athletica.
And I feel like you're also, as a lawyer, I think you're very good at also like reading people's needs.
For sure.
And analyzing. I feel that that's like a really special talent that lawyers have.
Yeah.
Of like understanding people's needs and, as you said, finding solutions for those needs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's all about, because it's one thing to know there's a problem, but you can't do much with it if you don't have a solution. And the client isn't going to be impressed with your service if you don't have a solution to that problem.
Exactly.
And as I say to my team, it's about having a third ear. So making sure you hear them, but you also hear what they're not saying as well, to make sure that you are actually, impressing them and really kind of delivering what we promise, which is extraordinary service.
Amazing. And can you tell us actually the story of how did you come up with the Reformer Athletica and how you have grown it now? Very exciting that you've expanded also to other regions.
Yeah.
So tell us the story behind that.
Thank you. Yes. So Reform Athletica was actually a brainchild idea of mine over a juice with my PT at the time in 2016 in London. So I used to train quite vigorously there. And as a lawyer, an oil and gas lawyer, I used to travel to the Middle East quite a lot. And every time I'd come to Saudi or to Dubai for work and I wanted to keep up with my fitness regime, I was looking for studios and for Pilates and, strength training studios that offer, parallel services to the ones I'm used to in the US and the UK. But I never quite found something that met my criteria in terms of excellent training, in terms of great facilities, in terms of accessibility to, the society and being in great areas. And I think it was I think God sometimes puts all the blocks together to make something happen. And I remember when I pitched the idea to my parents and I said, I think I have a business idea and I want to open a Pilates studio. And my father's response was like, sorry, what's Pilates? So it's certainly something that back then for Arab culture maybe wasn't as commonly understood. But we went ahead with it. We started looking for venues and spaces here in Dubai. And at the time, the idea was merely to have a side hustle, to have something on the side alongside my career as a lawyer to, keep me busy, but also challenge me intellectually in a different way. Because I've never been an entrepreneur. I've not studied that. So I thought, you know what, let's do something that's going to also stretch my abilities in a different direction. And I also remember pitching the idea to our landlord on Jumeirah Road back then. And there was such a surprise and a kind of a reservation about the concept. You want to open a gym on Jumeirah Road? That's a very high profile road. You can't do that. I'm like, yes, but it's not, your typical building muscly gym. It's going to be lovely. It's going to be, a beautiful space. So there was a little bit of an education journey to kind of get people to buy into the idea at the time. And we opened our doors in 2018. We haven't looked back since. But it's been quite the interesting journey in terms of opening. And I feel now that we've opened our third location in Saudi Arabia, I see the difficulties that I had back then right now in Saudi in terms of the understanding of studios, the understanding of what the concept is. Not to say that there isn't that understanding, but not everyone is quite there yet. And I feel now Dubai is just, you're spoilt for choice. Mm-hmm. And the culture and the businesses here have thrived since. Mm-hmm. And it's heartwarming to see for sure.
From what I remember because Jumeirah was more like residential and they were just starting having commercial locations, but it was mostly clinics.
Exactly.
Yeah, it wasn't as you said, usually gyms or studios would be more of a specific location.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And I was told at the time, unless you're a clinic or a hair salon, you're gonna find it very difficult to open here. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, but I still think this is the right one for us. I want to open on Jumeirah Road. Yeah. So yes, you're right.
And going into the Reformer Athletica method.
Yeah.
So tell us more about the Pilates practice that is performed in Reformer Athletica. And I know that there are several things. There's the Reformer, there's the mat, there's the machine, the T-Rex, and all of those. Yeah. So what did you see actually with you first doing it for yourself? Yeah. And the improvement that you saw that you became so passionate to share this with people and want more people to do that?
So my fitness journey started actually when I was diagnosed with diabetes in my early 20s. Before that, I wasn't quite the fitness kind of aficionado. I was more of a, I'd go to the odd class. I would do, school activities. I'd go to the university volleyball tournament, but it wasn't anything with that commitment. But I remember when I was diagnosed, my doctor said, okay, exercise needs to be part of your life for the rest of your life. If you want to keep your diabetes in check and if you want to make sure that, you live a longer and a healthier lifestyle. And I remember I first got into running, and I kind of attribute that to my husband who has got me into running. And then I started going to the different classes in London, and Pilates was one of the ones I started first. And it was Reformer Pilates. And I'd done mat Pilates and I'd done other types. But for me, the Reformer Pilates really, A, resonated with me, but B, I also saw the benefits of it within my own, my mental and physical health. And I really found that it helped my running, it helped my cardiovascular ability as well in other activities. And then I started incorporating strength training on the TRX. And all of that combined, I think, managed to, A, get me in a better physical state, but mentally. For me, exercise is therapy. Whenever I'm down, whenever I feel like, I need a reset, I find exercise something that really, rewires the brain. It just kind of makes you, releases all the endorphins, the happy ones anyway, and makes you want to do better. I think that's kind of how I see exercise. And there are several types of Pilates, like you said, but the ones I think really effectively deliver results time after time are Reformer Pilates, which is a form of low impact strength and conditioning. It does get your heart rate up, but it's gentle on the joints, it's gentle on the bones. It doesn't require the same intensity as cycling or running, for example, does. So I think it's a great complement to anyone's fitness regime, and I think, highly recommend it.
I absolutely agree, as I am a very big fan of Reform Athletica. I've been there from actually when you first started. I was like one of the first to go to the Jumeirah classes.
Yes.
Yeah, I really, and what I like about also the studio, and I always wondered, in terms of the atmosphere, there's a very special sort of calming, relaxing atmosphere, but at the same time, there is this motivation to push yourself further when it comes to classes.
Yeah.
So is there like a psychology or a reason, for example, you picked like certain colors or certain style of the studio or the energy that you wanted the studio for the customers to feel?
Absolutely. I think design plays such an important part of any space, let alone a fitness space. And I think what we wanted to do back then is to create a space that isn't intimidating, that isn't dark, because, the concepts, as I said, I think there were kind of there was a big surge of having that club, dark, underground scene of really, really loud music, no bright, no, natural sunlight. And for me, that's not the atmosphere I wanted to create. I wanted to create something that was inviting, that was not intimidating, that was open. And also for me, natural light is important. That's the first thing I look for in any space, because I think it just creates an uplifting mood the minute you walk in. Color choice is very important. You just need to pick something that's going to be calming, that's going to be relaxing, that isn't too jarring or, very much in your face. And we kind of wanted intentionally to create those kinds of calming spaces because we have the art component, which is layered on top to create or give a bit of color and life and meaning to the spaces. My husband, who's also the co-founder of Reform, he's super passionate about art. He's an art collector himself, and he's usually the art goer behind all our spaces. And for him, he kind of translates that passion into creating that artistic scene for the studios. So I kind of do all the design elements, and then he comes in with a blank canvas and does the art. So I think that's very important. And I also just want to stress that it's fitness sometimes can be a bit difficult for people who haven't done it before, because I've spoken to many clients who don't necessarily exercise that often, and they want to go and to a place, and they want to feel like they're welcome without being judged, without being measured in any way. They just want to go and feel good, do their class. And that's something that we translate into our spaces, but also into the culture of the staff. We make sure that everyone, comes in with that welcoming feeling.
And I agree, because I love it. It's my escape too. And when you were speaking about like how fitness is sort of something that balances you out, and that is exactly the same thing for me. When I work out, I feel a sense of balance. So like I had taken a break for a long time due to health reasons, and I felt lost without working out, and for me, I've loved Pilates ever since. Like I started in the US in university, and then when I came, you're very right, when I came back, there was like barely any Pilates studio.
That's
there was
right.
just like one that everybody went to. What I love about Reform Athletica, that it incorporates many different aspects for an individual. And especially like the ICD location, when we talked about design. So there, it's very prominent, the art there. And it's one of the things that actually like I enjoy when I go into the studio. And it's also a sense of sort of balance and escape for me. So I go for my workout, but at the same time, I spend a lot of time in the cafe working.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So sometimes I spend like 3 hours in your studio.
Love it. I love it.
And this is where it's very important as an entrepreneur, when you create a brand, that you look at all aspects, not only the product you're selling. It's also the emotions and feelings that the clients carry with them. And I can vouch for you have definitely started a movement.
Thank you.
Because definitely, like I would say, the 20-somethings, for them, Reformer Athletica is like you're there if you're going to the Reformer Athletica.
That's good to know. That's good to know. Although I have to say, it makes me, it really makes my heart warm, for sure. But I also would love for the space to be open for all. So I want the same kind of passion from the 40, the 50, the 60-year-olds. And we see that because the demographic of our clients is so diverse. And just going back to your point about the space, I think, every business starts with obviously the desire to be successful. But I think the key to success is authenticity, and also making sure that passion of whoever's setting it up is there, because I think that translates directly into the energy of the space. If someone I feel, I might be wrong, but I feel like if someone, sets out with the intention of creating a business just for making money, somehow that doesn't really last very long, because there has to be another factor that leads to a successful business, which is the passion and the drive behind the people behind it, and the team, and everyone kind of representing the brand, because that authenticity will translate directly into the classes, into the space, into the interactions between the team, the trainers, the clients. So I think it flows from the top, and if it doesn't flow from the top, you're gonna find a missing link that somehow ends up affecting the service down the line, for sure.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. I always see this with like different brands I work with, or even places I go. As a color psychologist, as you know, I'm always analyzing people's personality. So I always say that like if I enter a space or I use a product, I feel I can sort of know the character of the owner.
Really?
And yes, and it's
God.
so interesting that the emotions I have and the energy that I have when I go into the studio. And when I met you, I was like, this is spot on.
Oh, bless
I'm
you.
like, this is Dina.
Oh my God.
Like, I feel like your personality there, and I feel the passion that you have for your customers. And like, it's unconsciously, your customers are feeling what you want them to feel, by the way. So it was very interesting. Like, I always like this journey when like I discover, I'm like, this is a winning formula, as you said, being authentic when it comes to your brand. Because when you're real, people connect with the real people.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Very
I'm so glad that you feel that.
Yes,
oh my God.
I do. Absolutely.
Amazing.
Now you have expanded. What made you think of expanding to Saudi?
So, because, as I said, I think for me, Saudi's one of my homes, one of my many homes. And there are a couple of factors. One is kind of a business factor, but another one is a personal one. I think Riyadh is certainly going through a period of transformation in terms of businesses, in terms of Vision 2030, in terms of its ability to attract foreign investment. And I feel that it was the right time for us to set up shop there, notwithstanding all the logistical difficulties in doing so. But there's always a right time to get into a market, and we wanted to kind of lay the first stone before other competitors did. And I really do see the potential. I mean, the fitness scene there is growing incredibly fast, even faster than Dubai. But I think the reason why we see Dubai expand so quickly is because of probably the size. Riyadh is vast. Riyadh reminds me of kind of LA. It's huge. And, you know, one trip, even though, you know, it's still within the same city, it could take you up to an hour and a half. Whereas Dubai is, you know, notwithstanding the traffic, of course, is slightly more manageable in terms of locations. So that's the business side. And then on a personal note, you know, I was born there. My family's still there. I feel, you know, it was a full circle moment for me to bring something that I've built back to Saudi. You know, never in a million years would I have thought that I would set up a business there. But yeah, it makes me very happy to know that I have a foothold in the kingdom and something to bring me back to it. Not just my family and my roots.
Okay. And I remember when you first opened in Saudi, it was quite a challenging time.
Yes.
So okay, I remember it was like the first week of when all of these attacks started. So,
that's right.
Like, if you're comfortable, can you share with us, like, how was it?
Challenging. Very challenging.
Yeah.
So we opened on the 1st of March, 2026, and the war had started 2 days prior to that. And the day before our opening, the American embassy in Saudi Arabia got hit, and we are about 5 minutes away from that. So that was, so our studio is located within the diplomatic quarter, which is kind of home to all the embassies and the ambassadors' homes and kind of all the political and diplomatic attachés. So when the American embassy got hit, that whole area was on lockdown. So I wasn't able to go in because no one was allowed in, no one was allowed out. So naturally, it wasn't the best start to our opening. But I have to say, you know, perseverance kind of gets you half the way. It's still obviously. It's still a little bit slower than I'd like, but I think we'd opened in the middle of a war, we'd opened in the middle of Ramadan, then there was the Eid holidays, and then we're now kind of going into summer. So it was kind of layers of complications and kind of different aspects that have contributed to some challenges at the beginning. But, you know, I very much believe in the brand. I believe that it's something that people will enjoy and appreciate. And we're starting to see a lot of, you know, repeat clients that have been very, very attached to certain trainers and saying, when's the next class? When's this person on? But it's always, you know, notwithstanding the fact that we have a reputation in the UAE, it's still a new name for us in Saudi. So we're kind of starting from scratch in a way, but we're very kind of hopeful that it will be where Dubai is for sure. I hope.
And you see, this is what I feel describes the resilience of a business, you know, especially in these like difficult times. I had the same sort of experience when it came to COVID.
Okay.
So at the time, at my creative agency, our pure work was all luxury brand experiences.
Oh, wow.
And it was all events and campaigns all over the GCC. So it was all face to face, a lot of interaction and events and so forth. And that's the challenge I took. Like I had to be quick thinking, how do I make the money I was making with face-to-face events? But now we're in lockdown. How are we going to do this? So that's the thing. I think this resilience we have as entrepreneurs, you just think very quick.
Absolutely.
You know what to do. So I started actually doing online because with the color psychology, it helps a lot with, dealing with anxiety, depression, all of this, and also building up sort of a system for you to follow. So I switched it from basically fashion and luxury to more of people oriented service. So we started actually doing a lot of self-help talks for the brands.
Wow, amazing.
So we were still working with the brands, but we were giving the customers what they needed at the time.
Absolutely.
And also for the teams, for the luxury brand teams. So I definitely judge a business character of how you deal with such situations.
Yeah.
And especially, as you know, in these crises, small to medium businesses are the first to go.
Absolutely.
So I also had a lot of people at the time telling me, oh, so you're going to close down? And I'm like, why should I close down? You know, I'm like, instead, the alternative is actually bringing in more than what we used to.
Initially, yeah, of course.
So here's where I see that in your situation, where it was a time where all of us were technically, I would say lockdown.
Yeah.
You know, because we were afraid to go out, even though they didn't tell us not to go out, but you were afraid to go out. And at the same time, you wanted to still stay healthy because you still have to survive. So, these factors are very important when you're trying to come up with something in a crisis as a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the art of a pivot, right? How good are you at pivoting in crucial moments when you know that your current status quo isn't going to be good enough to continue? And knowing, okay, this isn't working, but how can I use my skill set and my foundations and all the work that I've done thus far to make something else kind of, with the same, with all the skills that you have, but doing something different that's going to yield the same benefit. So absolutely, I think that resilience and the ability to pivot without being also kind of too attached to your ways, because I think that can sometimes backfire, on oneself if you're not willing to constantly move with the times, and if you're not constantly willing to learn and adapt and be resilient and be pragmatic. For sure.
Absolutely. I always say the formula to entrepreneurship are two things. First of all, leave your ego at the door.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my God.
Because it humbles you.
Yep, 100%.
And the second is you have to accept change.
Yeah.
You have to be open to change in every form, because that's the only way you'll survive.
Absolutely.
And I see that with a lot of people who are stuck in their ways. And I'm like, you will never survive.
Yeah.
Because yes, you want to be authentic to your brand. And yes, you want to be you want to also maintain a certain level that you have. But it's not about compromising the price. It's not about compromising your service. It's just giving it another shape.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the actual, the real test is doing that with grace and acceptance, and without having, like you said, to be, stuck in your own ways. And I think I remember, and that relates to your point about, leave your ego at the door. One of the first things that my boss had told me when I first started as a lawyer, you don't come to work to be yourself. You come to do a job to the best of your ability, and you leave everything, your baggage, your personal issues, your, any problems that you have, you just need to leave them at the door, because you need to focus on what's at hand and do it to the best of your ability without people thinking that person's kind of susceptible to all the issues and the catastrophes that life can throw at them, and it will break them. You need to show that resilience, and I think that is something that stuck with me since then. And I always, whenever I start, work and I go through that door, that's it. Whatever happens outside stays outside, because I need to focus, for sure.
Yeah, compartmentalizing is another skill.
That's it. Yes. Oh, so many skills.
Yes, so many skills. I know, like I have a lot of when I go through my PR or campaigns or whatever, and I always have stories, I'm like, oh, if you only know what I was going through there, or, if that picture, if you only know what happened 5 minutes before.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, but yeah, and like people tell me, they're like, you always seem very happy. And I'm like, if you only know what I'm
What's
doing.
behind, I know.
But because I've learned to compartmentalize and for me, it's strangely, my work is my actually escape.
Absolutely.
And my happy place.
Yeah.
So when I go there, I'm like, yes, I am happy because this gives me comfort.
Yeah.
And it gives me purpose.
Absolutely.
So
that's what Nietzsche said, find a job you love and you never have to work a day in your life.
Exactly. And I don't feel it's work. Like, sometimes we have 14 hours of events and shoots and then whatever. And it doesn't feel like work. I come home I've, spent maybe 3 hours doing something, because I love doing it.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very important. And passion is a key thing, honestly, to success. Being passionate about what you do.
For sure. And I think that's also not important only for entrepreneurs and people with businesses, but it's also important for anyone who has a job and who works, whether entrepreneur, employee, because I think that passion translates in how good you deliver your skill set and how good you do your job. And you can feel it. If someone isn't passionate about something, you can instantly feel a disconnect and you know that person is just going through the motions and kind of doing a tick box exercise as opposed to actually putting their heart and soul into what they're doing.
Yes.
For sure. And that translates actually really, really importantly in the fitness business, because if you have a trainer that isn't passionate about what they do, you feel it as a client. You feel that, okay, their class had no energy or lacked that, real authentic feel to it. So yeah, passion, very important.
Yes, absolutely. And interesting, we brought the topic of trainers. So do you have sort of a system or a criteria of how you pick your trainers?
Great question. So that has, if you asked me that 8 years ago, we had no system. We were very much a startup and we kind of took what we got. But as we developed and kind of now have a lot of systems in place and proper processes in place, we certainly have a better idea of who and what makes a good trainer. And I think, like you said, passion is very important, and being really kind of committed to the continuous learning journey. I have a lot of trainers that come thinking that they are great and they're qualified. But as I always tell them, you're great now, but in 3-4 years' time, if you don't continue to upskill and to keep learning different methods and skills, and it can be soft skills. It doesn't have to be, training related skills. What are you giving me in return? I need to know that there's that passion and desire to continue evolving, as any profession, right? So even if you're a doctor, if you're an engineer, a lawyer, you're always having to update your skills and to make sure that you're, keeping with the times and the developments. So definite passion, qualifications in education and the ability to evolve and wanting to also evolve. And the most important thing, which you've touched on, is ego. If we feel that there's an ego, then we know that person has no place for us, no place for them at ours, because ego becomes a big issue, and then one rotten apple can end up, affecting the whole ecosystem.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of different abilities, and I think it's the human connection, because I think there are two elements to a great trainer. One is their, personal, their qualifications and their ability to teach a class, but also can that person connect with a human being on a personal level? Can they really be able to kind of push them, know when they're having a good day or a bad day, read the room and know when someone's progressing and so they can, do more, or someone's having an off day, so I need to go easy on them. It's reading the room and being able to apply those soft skills in delivering a great class. And that bit, unfortunately, is very difficult to teach. So someone can come with a great CV on paper, but that human connection element is just not there. And that doesn't work. So those two elements need to go side by side. And as I said, I think one is important, but they kind of need to go together.
As a type 1 diabetic, as you know, with our exercise, everything is unpredictable and up and down. So definitely shout out to Joanne and thank you for getting us together.
Exactly.
This is what Joanne and I work on. And as you said, the people skill.
Yeah.
So she is very much of understanding about when are my low days, when are my energetic days.
Yeah.
So at this phase, we're very happy because I have a lot of energy. So we've really leveled up.
Amazing.
But it's important, especially with clients that, for example, like us, who have conditions, you need to relate to it. And also listening to what the person wants to work on.
Yeah.
And as you said, pushing them to where they want to reach. So it is very important in that form. And what makes, I would say, what is your aha moment so far in your journey as an entrepreneur?
I think it's when I hear about Reform Athletica in complete isolated circumstances and they don't know who I am, and I hear people say, I love it, or it's changed my life. For me, that really gives me great sense of purpose, and it makes me very happy as to how the journey has been. And it with all its difficulties and challenges, I'm like, it's worth it just to hear those words. So funnily enough, I was in the changing room in our Riyadh studio yesterday, and I was overhearing two clients. They didn't know who I was, and two clients were talking about the class they'd just done, and they're like, oh my God, I love this class. And I've tried so many studios, but I've never felt this way before. And it just made me so happy. And having those little micro moments and little micro, great feedback from clients just gives me my big aha moment. I'm like, yes, I'm happy. It just makes me, just gives me happiness for sure.
And interesting, just that day when I was at the studio, there were a bunch of girls coming out of a class, and they were telling their receptionist, they're like, we love your studio because you're also, I don't know if they were traveling or whatever it was, and they were like, you're the only studio that's understanding in terms of for example, freezing our packages or being flexible with, even what's going on.
Yeah, of course.
So even that, it's a small thing, but it really makes a difference to a client,
Of course. And I think it's that human element that I was talking about, because you need to not see the person just as a client. You need to see them as a human being with their own personal circumstances. And as I said, I think the service industry is a tough industry to be in. And if you don't have that kind of, because we also on the flip side get a lot of other colorful conversations with clients who love to paint a not so rosy picture of our service. But we try our best to minimize those. But you can't help sometimes but think that, you're not unfortunately going to have everyone happy. And I think that's something that was a hard truth for me to accept, because I want to make everyone happy. And it's the people pleaser in me. I'm like, no, but we need to. But then I realize actually you can't. And if you want to seek out that in terms of making everyone happy, you're just going to drive yourself to the ground.
Yeah, that's
and there has to be some hard acceptances to think, okay, if I can keep 90% of the client base happy, I'm doing okay.
Yes.
So that's another hard realization to come to terms with for sure.
Well, it's a learning journey.
It's always, for sure. Yeah.
Great. And now you had mentioned earlier that you were diagnosed with type 1. So can you tell us your journey
Yeah.
about being diagnosed and how you live and what are your challenges and what are your highs and lows as a type 1?
Exactly. So I was diagnosed at 22. I was in London at the time. I was still I was doing my final year of my law degree. And I remember I'd kind of been losing a lot of weight. Inexplicably, no one was, everyone was kind of saying, oh, you're losing a lot of weight. But I was going to the gym at the time, not with a lot of dedication, but I was, going to the gym, exercising. But I've noticed the weight loss, and I've noticed that I was drinking a lot of water. I was drinking going through 4 liters a day and thinking I'm always thirsty. So anyway, I decided, you know what, I'm going to just book a routine test with my GP, which I did. And then I did my bloods, and he rang me and he said, come to my clinic immediately. I was like, oh, okay. And he said, pack your bag before you come. I was like, okay. I had no idea what was going on. So I got to his clinic and he said, I think you have diabetes. My sugar was 450. Oh, wow. And I said, okay. And at the time, I didn't really know much about it. I was like, okay, what's 450? And he's like, very, very high. Yeah. And I said, right. And he's like, you need to be admitted immediately to the ER. He gave me a letter and off. I drove myself to the hospital, parked up and went in. Didn't tell my parents, didn't tell anyone. I just kind of self-admitted. And then the doctors were at the time were like, okay, you're 22, you're not kind of overweight, so you don't fit the type 2, but you're also 22, so you don't quite fit type 1. So anyway, they ran all these tests, and then off came the diagnosis. And it was a learning curve for sure. It's something that I always say you get used to. It's like getting into routine. You wake up, you brush your teeth, you have your shower, you do your hair, you take your insulin. But the unpredictable nature of this beast is very exhausting sometimes. Yeah. You have readings sometimes that make sense, and you have readings sometimes that make no sense. For example, and I'm sure you can relate to me. In Ramadan, I try my best to fast, and when I'm fasting, I haven't eaten anything, but my sugar is just on a constant high. I'm like, what's going on? And then other days, you have the lows and you wake up exhausted and just it sets you up for a bad day. Yeah. So it's been a journey, but it's something that I'm used to. And I always say I'm grateful that I had a childhood without it. And because I can't imagine as a child how difficult it must be to manage diabetes with school and birthday parties and kids and eating cake and all that. So I'm so grateful, alhamdulillah, that I didn't have it as a child, and I didn't have it during university, except at the very end. So as an adult, it's a little bit more manageable because you understand a little bit better how to manage, your diet, and you have a little bit more discipline than a child would. But there are days that frustrate me. There are days that make me feel down, and I just push on and I say, you know what? I'm glad it's this and not something else. It's something that I can still manage. It's something that is still not as bad as other diseases. I hope I don't get them, and I'm only stuck with diabetes. But yeah, I think it's a blessing. God has his plan, and I'm content with it.
And when they they told you have to be admitted in hospital, what did they do?
So they ran all kinds of tests, and then I think they were the main concern was to try to bring my sugar down, and then it was about then I had to kind of understand, okay, that my food needed to be kind of measured based on the carbs that were in it, and taking the relevant insulin for that. So that was also another learning curve, because carb rating and carb ratios and all that.
Yeah. It's a crazy formula.
Yeah, and you suddenly have to become a mathematician.
Absolutely.
You're with a calculator. Yeah. But it also gives you a better understanding of what you put into your body. I've become a lot more aware of what I eat and what are the actual ingredients that are in food. And especially, when you go out to a restaurant, what goes into your food versus what you cook at home. But just to sort of answer your question, so they ran all these, the usual tests, and there's a test that they run, which is the HbA1c, which is your average glucose for the past 3 months. And that was, I remember it was 14.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's high.
it was very high. So it had been with me for a while, clearly. But they also ran another test, which is the blood toxicity in my blood to see whether it's got into my blood. If I remember correctly, that was the test. And there was no toxicity. So then they said it's not something that you've had for over a year, but it's not something that you've only had for 2 months. It's somewhere in between. And that kind of correlated with when I started losing weight and I started drinking tons of water. But, I think they asked me, did you have an emotional trauma in your life? Because usually autoimmune diseases can be triggered by those events. And I'm like, I'm usually like you said, I'm a happy person. I just get on with it. But there was no explanation as to why I got it. I have no history of it in my family. No one has type 1 in both my mom and my dad's side. So it was a very difficult thing for me to come to terms with, because I was like, but I'm healthy and I'm not overweight and I'm 22. Yeah. But then, it's, I think when you have, the faith and knowing that there's a reason for everything and and God has a plan, it gives you the peace and acceptance to just make it part of your life without letting it affect you or bring you down.
And which year was this when you got diagnosed?
2009.
2009. Okay.
Yeah, 2009. So
okay, the reason why I asked, because after COVID, like a lot, and people who also took the vaccine, there was a very high percentage of people getting type 1 because the type I have, which is LADA, gets triggered if you get a virus or, like as you said, if you have like a shock or tragedy or something.
Yeah.
And so you see, the COVID virus triggered whoever had this already dormant in them.
Interesting.
So that's why there was like even our support groups, like we had so many people coming saying the same thing, like my family doesn't have history of diabetes, I'm healthy and so forth. And it was like, it was being triggered that way.
Wow.
Yeah. But same thing, like when I was diagnosed, same thing. I was like losing weight crazy, thirsty like crazy. And when they did my reading, it was 400. But at the time, I was still misdiagnosed for 4 years because my type, when they do like regular tests, it shows as a type 2. Okay. You have to do an antibody test, which shows that it's a LADA, which basically the treatment for it is a type 1, which is insulin.
Gotcha.
So for 4 years, I was on tablets and I'm like, nothing's changing and I'm feeling worse, like, And so I think the journey is also, you learn a lot yourself aside from having the medical help,
Yes.
So you were saying that, like, in your journey, like you learned a lot how to be disciplined, I guess, and also this unpredictable ups and downs that we have. I know. So can you tell me, like, what was like the worst thing about it? When like when you were diagnosed or in your journey so far, what has been like the worst situation you've had with this where you've been really frustrated with it?
It's doing everything by the book and it still not being by the book. Absolutely. I think that's the bit, especially at the beginning. And I still have those days. I still have those days when I'm doing my best, not to eat the crazy fatty meals or the carb heavy meals, and I'm walking and I'm getting my steps in and I'm exercising, but my sugar's just not, it's not cooperating. And that to me is that's the difficult part. And also I remember there was one distinct hypoglycemia that I had, which is when your sugar goes really low, that stuck with me because it was in the middle of the night and it was one of my first ones that I had when I was still getting used to what diabetes was, what a hypoglycemia is. And I'd woke up in a total sweat in the middle of the night. My sugar was, I didn't even have time to measure it. And I like dragged myself like on the floor. I couldn't even walk. And I was living alone in London, dragged myself to the kitchen. And I had a big bowl of cereal, which just was heaven. It was the tastiest bowl of cereal I've ever had. But it was very daunting because it was my first experience of a really bad hypoglycemia, and it just stuck with me. And every time I think about a hypo now, I just can't help but sometimes also, whenever I hear of people being diagnosed with diabetes recently, I always tell them just watch out for those hypos because they can be debilitating.
Yes.
And they, especially if you have them and they're quite aggressive, you're just zapped for energy. That's it. Your energy's gone. Your mood is gone. And that's the bit I try to manage the most. But then, it's the fine balance of not taking too much insulin and then not taking too little because you don't want it to go too high.
Yeah.
But the difficult bit is definitely when you are really doing everything by the book and it's just not, your sugar's not cooperating. And I totally agree with you, Fatima, that the doctors are great, but with diabetes, you're your own doctor.
Yes, absolutely.
Because how you react, for example, to a certain meal may be completely different to how I react to a certain meal. And you can have the same two people who have the same exact, you tell them, you're telling them, okay, let's do an experiment of doing and eating the exact same thing for the whole day. And I would bet my life on it that their sugars would be completely different.
Yeah, completely different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, it's your body, it's your hormones at the time, the age, your lifestyle. There's so many things that go into it. Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of like frustrations with the doctors. Yeah. So when you were diagnosed, you were in the UK, right?
Correct. Yes.
And what was their protocol, for example, after you were diagnosed? Like, was there like sort of a system they told you to follow? And then like over time, as you saw, like these different changes that you weren't familiar with, how were they supportive in helping you out through the process?
Honestly, I have to say it was really, they have a very great system for people that get diagnosed with diabetes. So as soon as you're discharged from hospital, they put you for 6 days on the same dosage of insulin for every meal, which is a very low dosage, but they tell you to have a minimum of like 20 grams of carbs to make sure that what you're eating is being dealt with through the insulin. And that's kind of for a week. And then you have to come back to the clinic after a week and you sit with the dietitian and the nurse, and they kind of start, incorporating different learning methodologies of how to give appropriate insulin for what you're eating. Then they enroll you in a course for a whole week, which is great. And it's a full 9 to 5 for 5 days, which is carb ratio counting, which makes you understand how much dosage of insulin to give for the food that you're eating. And for example, how much even the effects of fat and stress on your sugar, because obviously we know that carbs translate to sugar and that's when you need insulin. But people don't know that if you have a very fatty meal, that can also spike up your sugar. Delayed onset. So if you have like a pizza or a burger, you take the appropriate insulin and then 4 or 5 hours later, your sugar starts creeping up. And you're like, but why? And then that's the fat playing a part. Same with stress. On days where you're very upset or very under a lot of stress, your sugar starts creeping up. So these are all the things they teach you in that course. So they were kind of really good in terms of giving you all the tools and education. And you get 6 weekly checkups for the first 6 months, and a lot of guidance and hand-holding. So from that perspective, I really did feel supported. But as I said, I think it's a very much self-learning and a very individual journey. But you also get to kind of socialize with other diabetics in the course and understand how they are doing and what their journey looks like.
And did they have like a support group there, or it was just as part of the course, like networking with people?
I think it was just part of the course, no support groups.
Okay.
It is. I'm just thinking about it. It is very lonely, I have to say, especially at the beginning. It was very lonely. And I'm the kind of person that doesn't like to burden people with my issues. So that's why it was only when I was discharged that I broke the news to my family, who were in Saudi at the time. And, they immediately flew to London to come and see me. And I said, I'm okay, I'm fine, don't worry about it. But, I like to kind of just deal with things. And then when they're solved, I'll present the problem and the solution.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm diagnosed, but I'm okay. So
yeah, you use your lawyer system here too.
Exactly. Even in my personal life.
Yeah. No, it's definitely it is isolating because you're trying to process within yourself, but like the people around you, I mean, there are people who are understanding, and the ones that are not, you kind of like, I feel, don't have the patience to deal with
That's right. That's right.
So, and it's isolating because you get tired of explaining, but as you said, at that time, like, if you're dealing with the hyperglycemia, you're like, I can't talk and say, I have to like live right now, you know?
Exactly.
And I had a similar actually story with when I got my first hyperglycemia. So, I mean, I was here and was with the family, but I was in my room.
Yeah.
And at that time, like, I didn't have like any sweets or fridge or whatever. You just go to the kitchen to get it, you know?
Yeah.
And same thing, I had to like literally crawl. And then I learned that like at all times, whether it's my bag or my car or my room, I have like dates or juice, a stash next to me, or I have like chocolate, you know? And it's frustrating because sometimes like I used to teach in the university. So sometimes like the class would be like 2 hours straight.
Yeah.
And that was another incident where it dropped, and like, thank God I had my assistant with me, and I was like, orange juice right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, because meanwhile, like, you know, the students are not gonna like
they're not
get
gonna.
it. So then that became another thing. When I was teaching, I always had an orange juice. While I'm speaking and I'm getting my husband, and I'm like just having my juice and talking. Meanwhile, they don't know I'm just like dropping dead right now.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's like the resilience comes there too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you notice that in different aspects of life. And just going back to the unpredictability of type 1. So I remember when I ran my first half marathon, that was also a bit of a shock for me because I was training and it was this fear of, I don't want to get a hypo when I'm out on the course. So I ended up like having like a bagel and a banana and sweets and God knows what. But I was like, okay, I'm going to take very little insulin because I don't want a hypo. But then after the race, I was, very high because I didn't want to. I was like, I'd rather be high than get a hypo during the run. But then you notice after for 2 days after that long run, your sugar is like, it keeps dropping and dropping. So there's that afterburn as well that I didn't know anything about at the time. So I had to discover that, okay, if you're doing a very long run, your body is going to be burning fat for the next 2 days. So you need to calibrate your insulin, reduce your dosage because there's this happening after a run. So it's a constant learning curve. Yeah. Constant learning curve.
Mathematical, like, we're mathematical geniuses, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I'm there with my calculator every day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yeah, no, exactly.
I know for me, I always say it's funny. Like, I was always bad at math, and I hated anything to do with math or finance. And in university, for me, my finance and accounting class was like torture till I finished it. and I was like, this is so ironic that I get a disease which is all about math.
Exactly.
So it was like, and later on in life, now I've learned to like embrace math.
Absolutely. It's part of our life. It's part of our life. We're stuck with it. Absolutely.
So the next thing actually I wanted to ask you about, like, so you mentioned like when you shared this with your family.
Yeah.
So my question would be, what is your support system around you?
Great question. I mean, I think there is certainly an understanding within the close circle around me of the disease and how it affects me. So, for example, my husband, my parents, my siblings, and my closest friends, that is currently how, my support system functions. It's within this group. But even, as I said, even within this group, I don't like to burden them with kind of how I'm feeling or if I'm having a low day or a bad day. I just because I also don't want them to worry. I don't, especially my parents are the type that would constantly think, are you okay? Is everything okay? Are you feeling, and my mom would always kind of walk around with a juice or sweets for me. But it's not wanting to burden people. So as much as I'd love to have a support group, I'm not sure that I'd want to burden my family around it, but I would, I think I do better with strangers with support groups because your inhibitions are down. You feel like you can speak freely. You can share your story without that fear of, oh, but that person really cares about me because I'm their daughter or their sister. And therefore they're going to have it on their mind that person's going through a rough time. Yeah. Whereas with a stranger, where, the support group is kind of a group of people that isn't within your inner circle, it probably makes it a little bit easier. And I would have loved to have had that when I was diagnosed. Right. Because for me, the diagnosis and kind of the couple of years after that, it was certainly a lonelier version and a lonelier journey that what I've liked it to be. And maybe it's partly my fault. I didn't seek them out. I didn't seek these support groups out. I'm sure they exist, especially at the time when I was in the UK. But I got on with it. I'm very much like, okay, you have to just get on with it. Life moves on. No one's going to wait for you and feel sorry for you. And I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. So off we go and you kind of get on with it.
Yeah, it was the same for me. Like initially, it was very much about me trying to figure out and do it on my own. And like, I'm a crazy researcher. So like anything that comes about, I'm like, yes, I can write my own PhD paper on it. So I researched everything. And like, for me, it was more about like educating myself and knowing how to manage it. Yeah. But do you get the frustration, for example, like sometimes like they don't get, for example, like what you're going through, even though you're explaining,
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I even have that with my husband sometimes where I feel I'm going through a really bad day. I had a horrible hypo during the night. It zapped my energy. I'm running on zero. My tank is empty, but he's still expecting me to function as normal because, and again, maybe, I'm to blame for it. Maybe because, both you and I are type A personalities and we don't want anyone to feel like anything's going to affect us. So on the one hand, we want the understanding, but on the other hand, we don't want the pity.
Yes, exactly.
So it's kind of finding the bit in between where it's kind of cut me some slack on those days. But it's hard to translate into how do you translate that kind of need of understanding without it being, oh, but we feel sorry for you.
Yes,
how do you do that?
Yeah. You see, with me, honestly, what helped was the support group. Okay. Like for me, the support group was a game changer. So like the clinic I go to used, as you said, like the UK, they use this integrated medical approach. Okay. Where they walk you through each step of it. Yeah. You have your coaches, you have the support group. So for a long time, when I didn't have anyone to talk about it, and it did actually over time like affect my relationship with family members, my friendship, and with work, the expectations that was expected, like exactly like the type A, like I was like on a train going without stopping, and everybody was always expecting me like, oh yeah, she can, do this many hours and show up and she's fine, Absolutely. And then suddenly my body was not allowing me, and that was the frustration. I had so much I wanted to do, but my body would not allow me. Yeah. And the support group helped me, where the coach actually helped me sort of process what I'm feeling, then sort of verbalize what I'm feeling, but not in not being frustrated, educating.
Interesting. Okay.
So for like an example, like when I would have a low, like I would have one of my siblings telling me, "Do you want me to get you your insulin?" And I'm like, "No. When you have a low, you need to give me orange juice." And then it would frustrate me, like, why can't you go on YouTube and just get in the information? But then she was like, don't get frustrated because they're not in your situation. So like they would not know about it unless they needed to know about it.
That's true.
You know?
That's
So she's like, so in these situations with whoever it is, and for example, they say something that's like not logical in what needs to be done, always tell them no.
Yeah.
At this situation right now, I need this.
Yeah.
Or if this happens to me, just straight away do this. Because with the hypo, what people don't understand is sometimes you have such bad brain fog with it that the orange juice could be right in front of you, but your brain is not processing to pick it up and have it, drink it. So, and these things, like, it's terrifying for the person going through it.
And do you notice that certain hypo, like not every hypo is the same?
No.
Some are okay.
Yeah.
You just have your juice and it's fine. And some are, like you said, you're like, it's right there, but something is just not computing.
Not like letting you go. And also like some of the hypos, like now I've had it over like I think 12 years. You don't feel your hypo, which is scary.
Yeah.
And it's just thanks to the sensors that it beeps.
Exactly.
And then the thing is, like, sometimes, especially all of us complain about this. You're like asleep and then it beeps. And then you're like, you really can't be bothered.
I know. I've had those. I've had those. I'm like, nope.
And you're like, I have to wake up. And I'm like, oh, just forget it.
Yep. I'm like,
so here, as I said, because we have the supply next to the bed.
Exactly.
So, like, I pop my, like, date in. And then I notice after, like, 30 minutes that, okay, now I'm starting to feel, funny or sweaty or,
Yeah.
So this is also scary over time when you have it for a longer period of time.
Yeah. And then you have to start thinking about your eyes, your eyesight, your feet,
I know. There's so many
all
things
the other joys.
That's why, you see, the discipline comes from there because you have to function like an organ, basically.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to be very disciplined in terms of, like, for me, when I structured my day is what balanced my sugar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, which is very annoying because I'm a very spontaneous person. So I can't be spontaneous anymore.
I know. Yep.
And with travel also.
Yeah.
Ironically, this was one of the questions I wanted to ask you. Do you feel like with how your state of mind and emotion is, does that affect like your blood sugar? Because when I go on holiday, I barely take any insulin.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm completely calm.
Wow.
I sleep and I have like over 20,000 steps in every
fair.
day.
That's exactly.
So I really don't need
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's why I was like, I need to be in vacation mode all the time.
If only. Yep.
So have you noticed this? Like, for example, yes, I mean, like on your daily basis, your emotions while you're working or when you go on holiday, have you seen the difference?
I'm not sure I see a lot of difference. The only thing I'd say is the stress levels are certainly, for me, directly correlated to how good or bad my sugar is. And I guess that's to your point. When you're on holiday, your stress levels are naturally lower. So what I actually feel is for the same amount of food I'm having during a holiday, I'd need less insulin than I would need on a normal day. So I guess that translates to what you're saying. And I think it's also your state of mind. It really does play a big factor. And wanting to, you're naturally wanting to explore and walk, and you're energetic and you're in a better, happy state of mind. So that also ends up, translating to your sugars. So for sure. And I think we live such stressful lives. Naturally we're constantly on the go, like on the hamster wheel. Yeah. So the difference is noticeable between that lifestyle and when we finally slow down when we do. But it's, again, it goes back to discipline. I think even on those stressful days, you need to carve out the time to wind down and give yourself the space to not be on the hamster wheel all day, every day, because it will catch up with you for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And like with me, my life is in time slots.
Yeah.
Literally, I was like, if you want to see me, let's see where the time slot is,
Exactly. Yeah.
because it's literally like this, where like wake up at a certain time, then I do my cardio, then I do my work, then I have my midday like weight training or Pilates or something, then I go back to my meetings, then like 5 o'clock, I'm like,
Done.
Yeah. I'm like, nobody, like work, I don't answer anything till the next morning,
And that discipline is so important.
And it's so hard to achieve, especially with our type A personalities where you love what you do. So you're like, I want to go. So it took me quite a while to like hold myself back, I'm like, no, you can't do this. It's going to affect your health.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not only does it affect your diabetes, it affects everything else, right? Your cortisol levels, your hormone levels, your just general well-being. Your, even I had a full bloods done a couple of weeks ago to not the regular doctor bloods that you do all the time or the ones I do with my diabetes clinic. It's all the other bits they don't test for. Because I just wanted to see, okay, where is my body at in terms of stress, in terms of hormones, in terms of supplements, what's good for my body, my intolerances, my allergies, my skin sensitivity, my food sensitivity. So it was something that I wanted to do because we do live such a high stressful paced life that not doing just your regular kind of blood test isn't enough. But anyway, yet to be seen because I haven't gotten the results yet. I'll let you know if they're any good or just...
Yeah. No, definitely. Like hormones plays a very big role in your blood sugar ups and downs. And also the allergies. Definitely. Yeah. Because also like what I noticed, like my skin was suddenly getting very dry after I got diabetes.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a lot of like strange things that happen with it. But I wanted to ask, when you were diagnosed, was there sensors?
No.
There wasn't.
No,
Okay.
Not back then.
Okay.
And
you had to do it with the machine.
Yes.
Like, okay.
Yes. And I always had to take it out of my bag and put the strip in. Yeah. But now we're lucky to have the sensors, which is amazing. And just going on the technology. So I actually tried out the pump last month, and my doctor said, "Listen, it's the best thing. You don't have to think about it." And I was like, "Okay, let's give it a go." But I'm one of the very strange people that hated it. I really didn't like it. I thought it was very restrictive. You have this constant thing stuck to your body with a wire, and you sleep with it. You have to have it with you all the time. And the kit that you have to travel with in order to keep it. You have your vials and your insulin and your sensors and it ended up needing its own suitcase. And I'm like, I told my doctor, I was like, I can't. This is too much. And it's a 3-day cycle. So everything needs to get changed every 3 days. And as much as, yes, it took the thinking out in terms of, okay, how much insulin do I need? It was more of a logistical hassle that I said, no. She's like, wow, you're maybe 1 in 10 people that didn't like it. Everyone else loves it. And I was like, yeah, but also having a wire just constantly sticking out didn't, I don't know, I don't like it.
It's not comfortable. No, there are a lot of people, by the way, who were on the pump and like don't like the pump, but now there is the new technology,
the wireless,
the Omnipod,
exactly,
which is every 3 days, like you change it.
But again, it's like bulky. So you have your sensor on one arm and then the pump on the other.
Like yesterday, I went to a wedding and I was thinking, because my doctor's like been trying to tell me to get on the Omnipod, and then yesterday, like I had gone for a wedding and I had worn something short, and I was like, if I had the Omnipod, I couldn't wear this dress,
exactly.
And you see, it's these strange things that like a normal person doesn't think of, but we have to think of. But the pump, it's very personal, honestly. And like a lot of people also didn't like the idea that then they forgot how to take the doses for the pen on their own if the pump wasn't working. The only thing I get scared of is because now the pump is connected to the sensors. Sometimes the sensors also are off.
That's true.
So that kind of like really scares me, that if it's off and then what's being pumped in, it's like there's so many things. I know.
So
yeah,
for sure.
Have you had a situation where, like, for example, you have like forgotten if you had taken your insulin, or if the dose has been correct or not?
Yep, as early as, as recent as this morning.
Okay.
I'm like, did I take my insulin? And usually that correlates with, because you wake up, you kind of, you get into your routine, you do things kind of without thinking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this morning, I was like, did I take my insulin this morning? Yeah, I have those all the time.
Yeah.
Or sometimes, which is even more dangerous sometimes, I take insulin for the food I've eaten, but I don't know how much I've given myself. I'm like, and then I ended up I was like, oh my God, I've taken 10 units for a salad. I'm like, what did I just do? So then I have to like eat to compensate for the amount of insulin I've given myself. Yes, because you're just suddenly in an autopilot, and you are just giving yourself this insulin without thinking about what you've eaten or how long ago you've eaten. So yes, it has happened.
Okay.
Guilty as charged.
Don't feel guilty. Last week I had a disaster mistake.
Oh gosh.
So I had taken like 5 units for my dinner.
Yeah.
Okay. And then around 10:30 I always take the long Tresiba.
Acting, yeah.
And now I've learned. So the pens are in the same place.
Yes.
And I took the short one by mistake and gave myself 12. So it was 17 units.
Oh my God.
And the good thing is I realized that once I punched it in, and I was like, oh my God, it's not the green pen. And then straight away, I was like, I started like taking like 2 7-Ups and whatever to keep it up. And I was like, no, I can't take the risk. So I immediately went to emergency.
Okay.
And it was of course high because I had taken this. But then after, like, they kept me there for like 4 hours.
Okay.
After 2 hours, it started dropping.
Gosh.
They gave me an IV, but then I also had to eat and have orange juice on top of that.
Wow.
Because like my readings were dropping. Like, for example, if it was like 190, within 2 minutes, it was like 140.
Wow.
It was like crashing.
Wow.
And that's another thing. Like, this basically keeps you alive, but you could also kill yourself at the same time,
Exactly.
So that's why my doctor was saying that you wouldn't have this issue if you had the pump on.
True. That's true.
So
that's true.
So so it's like a whole journey.
I actually had a funny story for you. I was in New York a couple of weeks ago, and jet lag also plays havoc with your sugar.
Definitely.
Which I know and I expect, especially when the time zone is very different and you have to, like, your evening shot becomes like a morning. Anyway, so I was in New York for a couple of days, but my sugar was just constantly really high, and I'd just taken a new pen out of the fridge, my short acting. So I was like, okay, but it was very high. It was not going down. I was like, is it the jet lag? Is it New York? Is it the food? And then I just, by sheer coincidence, on day 3, when I was like, this is really weird, like I need to either go to the hospital or like call my doctor in London, I looked at the pen and it was expired.
Yeah, that's another issue, by the way.
I was like, that explains it. So again, I was pumping expired insulin into my body, but
and also, by the way, on the plane, sometimes the insulin gets affected.
Correct. Yeah.
Because that's why I always take double pens with me.
Yeah.
But sometimes like it gets defected even if it's not expired.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
So all the joys.
Never-ending battle.
Exactly. Oh my God. I know. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much
you.
for coming on today and sharing your story. And truly, like, I felt our connection from day one.
Absolutely. I could stay here for another 3 hours.
Yes. And I could talk for 3 hours.
I know.
With you.
Same.
So thank you very much for sharing your inspiring story. Thank you for sharing your entrepreneurial experience. Like, definitely many people will appreciate it going through this journey. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. And it was a pleasure being your guest. And thank you for thinking of me, and appreciate all the support.